Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new video and book reading of Codeword Barbelon, 666, Danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola, and their plans for world domination. Today is January 1st, 2018, according to our Gregorian calendar. And I am sitting here in Minnesota, and I am going to be joined here with Jörg Glismann from Belgium. And how are you today, Jörg?
I'm fine, thanks. It's been raining here all day, except for this noon. We had a few hours where it was dry, and I took my mother for a walk with the dog for a little bit over an hour. And when we came back at about 1:30 or so in the early afternoon, it started to rain, and I think it hasn't quit even since then. So, you know, when I go down to my yard here, the few steps down, I almost fall on my ass when I'm going down on the grass because it's so glitchy. It's so soaked with water because it has been raining here so many days. Actually, the last weeks, the soil is soaked with water, and you're really slipping in there. So it's
It's
really
that's
fun.
how it is. Yep, it's kind of muddy. Huh?
Yeah, it's muddy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But that looks really beautiful over there where you're at. I did see one of your videos that you did in German with your walk there, and it looks really nice over there.
Yeah, it's not so bad. You can live at much worse places than where I live. I agree
That's
with that.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I could be in the city in Minneapolis, and it would be, well, you know, there are quite a few parks in Minneapolis, actually. So it might be one of the better cities, but still, you got a lot of other things to deal with. But at any rate, that's that, and that's just the world. We're trying to get out of the world, right, Jörg? We're not trying to be in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. We separate ourselves from the world.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be, according to the
That's the
Bible
way
and according to my conscience.
Yeah, I know we had a listener a while back request a book by James Aitken Wylie, and I have yet to go down there and scan some copies and make a PDF, but I do plan on doing that. I don't know if I'll get to it this week or not, but just wanted to put the word out there that that's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, well, Brett, the sooner you do that, the better, because things that you put on the long bench are things that fall off and you forget about them. So
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's true.
there's always another priority coming up then, you know. So
Yeah. Well, now is a good time because things are cold and down, and it's always good to get out and do things like that, and just get that word out there, because James Aitken Wylie, that was his last book, and we can't find a PDF of that anywhere. I don't have the title in front of me right now, but I think it has something to do with the end days.
yeah, something about the end times and Exodus or something is in the title.
Yeah, I think that was Emmanuel. So thanks, Emmanuel, if you're listening. We appreciate that, and I'll try and get that done for you. So.
Okay, are we going to continue in the book reading, Codeword Barbelon, because we are in the
Please,
final stages
let's go
of
for it.
the gunpowder plot, telling the people about the conspiracies the Jesuits had planned to get Great Britain back under the yoke of Rome, which they went away of under false pretenses, of course, with King Henry VIII, because nobody should think that King Henry VIII turned his back on Rome because he was a Protestant. He did not. He had other reasons, and he probably even stayed a Catholic all his life, but, you know, his motivation is not important. Important is that in the year after Tyndale died on the stake in Vilvoorde here in Belgium, a few kilometers from where I live, and he cried out just before he was killed at the stake, "O Lord, open the King of England's eyes." A year later, King Henry VIII got it done that the English Bible was published. That was mostly from Tyndale's Bible, and Tyndale's Bible is for a big part also based on Wycliffe's Bible from even 100 years earlier.
Wow.
And this English Bible was then the first Bible that had to be put out by the order of the king in every church, so that the people were in the possibility for the very first time reading the Word of God in their own language. That is what was absolutely impossible during the quote-unquote Dark Ages. And the Reformation brought the light back into the world. Not the light that you light a candle in the evening because you have dim lighting and want to do something inside your house, but the light that is the Word of God. And, well, that was a big part of the Reformation too, exclusively in England, of course, and the Jesuits were not satisfied with that, so they used the end of the 16th century to send the Spanish Armada and plan the Babington plot to overthrow the Protestant rule that came then with Queen Elizabeth in England. And one of their schemes that they used was the gunpowder plot that we have been reading for the last, I think, 2 sessions or 3 sessions in the reading of this book. And I hope we can bring it to an end today. We have about 5 pages left until we come to chapter 5. And of course, the book, dear listener, is always getting more and more and more interesting. The farther you go, it is not getting more boring, it is getting more interesting and fascinating, I can assure you.
Please, Jörg, go ahead. I'm ready.
So without any further ado, I will pick it up on the top of page 54. And excuse me, there are here on this and the next coming pages a lot of footnotes. Sometimes I'll have to take a little while to have a look at the footnotes, because sometimes these footnotes are also interesting to read. They are not only the documented sources, because we told already that this book is absolutely very well documented with sources also. No, but there is sometimes quite interesting information in these footnotes, and then I have to read a little bit through it. And bear with me if here and there I make a pause of a few seconds, because I first have to understand that, okay? So then I'm going to start on the top of page 54 now. We are still talking about the subject in this book about Garnet, the Jesuit Superior of England of the Society of Jesus, Confessions and Trial of Henry Garnet. That's what we are talking about. We're going to pick it up on the top of page 54, where P.D. Stuart says, "None of Garnet's actions should surprise us, as it was the founder and the first general of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola himself, who mined all such treasures of Jesuit sophisms," means sophistries also, yeah? "On Ignatian principles," and we were speaking about those last time, the martyrs after the Ignatian model, as you probably remember that we were talking about. "On Ignatian principles, a Jesuit could justify any act by convincing himself that it was ad maiorem Dei gloriam," means for the greater glory of God. When someone of the Society of Jesus does something ad maiorem Dei gloriam, for the greater glory of God, dear listener, this is not meant with the glory of the God of the Bible, but the prince of the power of the air, the God of this world, Satan. Always remind yourself of that when you read something like this. Loyola wrote, quote, "It would be greatly advantageous, too, not to permit anyone infected with heresy to continue in the government, particularly the supreme government of any province or town, or in any judicial or honorary position," unquote. Loyola also taught his order such niceties as, quote, "Wrong is right if it is for gain of the church," unquote, and, quote, "The end justifies the means," unquote, and "by any means necessary." Thus the gunpowder treason plot was merely a fruit of the poisonous tree. Here P.D. Stuart, of course, is referring to the Bible. By their fruits you will know them. And when in the Bible it says that it is impossible for an evil tree to bear good fruit, as it is even impossible for a good tree to bear evil fruit. The fruit of the poisonous tree, that is the gunpowder treason plot that we are speaking here about. And I don't go into the things like I've just read, like the end justifies the means, and wrong is right, if it is gain for the church, I went into the earlier readings. So dear listener, if this is the very first video of the Codeword Barbelon book reading you follow from us, please go to the playlist and avail yourself of the parts that were published earlier where I spoke about these things, so that you can get or gain a deeper understanding of the subject spoken about here. P.D. Stuart continues, all of these convenient rulers were kept alive and promulgated after Loyola's death in his constitutions. Indeed, such adages or maxims repeatedly crop up in almost every Jesuit book. And, to be sure, these are just a few of the more noteworthy illustrations of the sophistries taught by the Society of Jesus, a most enigmatic breed of monks. Of the many other schemes, plots, convulsions, and contrivances they have orchestrated ad majorem Dei gloriam, we shall have much opportunity to speak. Nor is any of this a private view, or some particular prejudice of mine, P.D. Stuart, but a public testimony exhibited in print to all who would care to read, and to the world. Very important that P.D. Stuart here says, a public testimony exhibited in print to all who would care to read. Dear listener, do you care to read? Do you care to do your own studies? Do you care to try to get information away from the system that you were raised in, and you know that system only teaches you lies? So you are on the look, searching for the truth outside of that system, that you can have an alternative view, that maybe you will discover the backside of the medal for once, instead of only seeing the front side that is held into your face since the day you were born. People are very often just too lazy to read for themselves. And that's a shame. Because they don't read for themselves, they take the things people like Alex Jones, David Icke, and Max Jordan, and I don't know what all these misinformation, disinformation agents tell over their videos. Or they listen to Pastor Mike or Eric John Phelps, who in biblical terms is absolutely on the wrong side. Historically, in his research, I applaud him for that. But the point is that you cannot rely on these kind of teachers. You have to do your own research. And P.D. Stuart hits a very vulnerable point here when he says that this is a public testimony exhibited in print to all who would care to read. It is out there now. I don't know how much longer anymore it is out there. I don't know how much longer the internet will be there, how much longer everything else will be there, printed books and all that stuff that we can have free access to, as we do have right now, because as our personal rights are being infringed more and more, day by day, so also these things disappear. And Bret did mention this book from James Aitken Wylie that is not available as a PDF. It is even in most places in the world not available as a book anymore. He is just lucky that he found it there in that library where he lives. Yep.
It's pretty rare.
And then we have to see if he is able to get it and to make a PDF out of it and maybe read it and maybe make it public knowledge. But P.D. Stuart says here that the people who would care to read can gain this information. So please avail yourselves to the sources that are available for the moment there to get this information. And always make sure that you know what is the source of the information. Because there's so much disinformation out there. Just today again I got a comment on, yeah, but Loyola was a crypto Jew. No, Loyola was not a crypto Jew. But of course the Jesuits put out these kind of lies and deceptions to put you on the wrong track. And Bret, remind me that I will send you the links of the video where the crypto Jew Loyola is debunked, and
oh
the
yeah,
link to
that's
the channel.
right.
That's
from Run to Christ. I can
yeah,
find
from
that
Run
too.
to Christ.
That's easy.
It's a very good study that he did on that on 2 videos, and one video we have the link of here. The other one you find easily on his channel yourself. You have to do your own research, remind you, and then you will see that this is all baloney. Okay. Now the aforementioned plot, the gunpowder plot, was executed under the generalship of the Prince of the Jesuits of Rome, Claude Aquaviva, who lived between 1581 and 1618, or no, sorry, who reigned as Jesuit general between 1581 and 1618. The 5th superior general of Secreta Monita fame, who is described as, quote, the beau ideal of Jesuitism, of political intrigues, crafty, insinuating, persevering, with an inflexible intrepidity of character, unquote. He was the perfect Jesuit. There's one other murderous scheme which story deserves a passing notice. Having been foiled in their gunpowder plot of 1605, they sought to make good their failure later that century, on January 24th, 1679. The procurator of the English Jesuits, William Ireland at that time, made another failed attempt at regicide. Regicide is, remind you, the overthrowing of a lawful government. Today they don't call it regicide anymore, they call it regime change. He was found guilty, and like Garnet before him, was put to death in London for plotting to kill the king. These men stop at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah? The Vatican and the Jesuits say, of course, that he was falsely accused. Yeah, the Jesuits also say that they put out the information there that Loyola was a crypto Jew, which is also a lie. You cannot expect a thief who was caught with a hand in the cookie jar to admit that it is his hand, and that he was actually going to steal the cookies, not just caressing them. Huh?
Yeah, that's right. You know, I just think of how legalistic this world is. And you cannot convince someone that people that follow Jesuit principles are Jesuits. They only see the title. Okay, this man is a bus driver. You know, he's not a Jesuit. You know, he's not a. But the thing is, once you use the principles of the Jesuits, you are a Jesuit. It just is that simple, right, Jörg?
Or
am
at
I
least a
off?
coadjutor.
Yeah, a coadjutor. That's what I want to say. Yeah, that's right. So you're working for a Jesuit cause, in other words. Yes, simple as that.
Nor must we forget to mention, P.D. Stuart continues, similar, or rather worse instances of Jesuit regicides which occurred in France. In 1593, a Jesuit priest, Auguste Barrière, attempted the life of King Henry IV. In 1594, another assassination attempt was made by Jean Châtel. The murder of King Henry IV was finally effected by the Jesuit lawyer François Ravaillac on May 14, 1610, following the Edict of Nantes. You have to know that Henry IV, King of France, between 1589 and 1610 reigned there, and he succeeded in calming religious warfare, improving the realm's finances and administration, and curbing Spanish designs through alliances with England and the United Provinces. He won acceptance for the Edict of Nantes, which was made into effect in 1598, which extended religious toleration to the Huguenots. And also it gave peace to the Valdenses and the Albigenses, who were persecuted people in the south of France by Rome, all through the 1260-year reign of the Antichrist that we are still in this time. Yeah? And especially the Huguenots got quote-unquote religious liberty in France. They were given the freedom to exercise their religion as free as they wanted to, and their religion was the Bible, and the Bible alone, based on the Reformation. And here this king gave the Edict of Nantes in 1598. And I don't know, I think we spoke already a little bit about it, otherwise we will speak in the future about it. King Louis the XIV, the sun god of France, in the end of the 17th century, he revoked the Edict of Nantes because of the involvement of Jesuit Père de la Chaise. I don't know if we spoke already about this during this book reading, because I spoke so many times about him I cannot remember whether it was in German or in English or one of my videos or the book readings here, but I'm sure we will get into the Edict of Nantes, and otherwise you can always place the question in the description, in the comment section of the video, and maybe we can even do a whole complete video on the Edict of Nantes. And by the way, Bret, since you are reading the two Babylons from Alexander Hislop, he deals in over 2 pages long with Père de la Chaise and the Edict of Nantes in his book, the two Babylons.
Got it.
This edict gave freedom of worship to all Christians, and we are speaking here about all Christians in the biblical sense. We are not speaking about Catholics, we are speaking about Protestants, and was schemely opposed by the Catholic Church, of course. Paris, this is the author Edmond Paris, of course, in The Secret History of the Jesuits, he writes, on the 16th of May 1610, on the eve of his campaign against Austria, Henry IV was murdered by Ravaillac in his own chamber. Unquote. The entire plot was set up by the Jesuits. The Duke of Ippemont, who made the king read a letter while the assassin was lying in wait, was a notorious friend of the Jesuits, and Michelet has proved that they knew of this plot. Ravaillac had given confession of his plans to the Jesuit Father d'Aubigny just before the assassination, and when the judges interrogated this Jesuit priest as to why he did not reveal his knowledge of the plot beforehand, well, dear listeners, you know what's coming up now. He merely replied, he merely replied that God had given him the gift to forget immediately what he heard in the confessional.
Man.
In fact, Ravaillac later confessed to having been inspired by the writings of Jesuit fathers Mariana and Suarez. These two Jesuits sanctioned the murder of heretic tyrants. Said the Jesuit doctor Filesac, Ravaillac's father confessor, quote, God be thanked, Ravaillac has died like a saint. I heard his confession. And it is certain that he is in paradise. The sacrament of confession infallibly works out the salvation which conducts straightway to paradise, where he is now. Ravaillac will repose in the bosom of Abraham. Unquote. I will not go into that, but you will of course know that I strongly, and Brent too, disagree with what this Catholic says here about the bosom of Abraham, and that Ravaillac is being made a saint. Ravaillac will repose in the bosom of Abraham. If you believe that, I don't believe that, Bret doesn't believe that, you can take it from me for sure that the God that he thanks here, Filesac, the God that he thanks here, is not the God of the Bible. And Ravaillac has not died like a saint, no, he has died like a terrorist, as they call that today. And probably they're even gonna make him a saint in the future. Ravaillac will repose in the bosom of Abraham? My eye, no way. But that is of course the way the Roman Catholics sell us this BS. After Henry's death, the revocation of the Edict of Nantes drove 500,000 Protestants into exile. Yeah, and we have to understand that we are speaking here about the end of the 15th, the beginning of the 16th century, 16th and the beginning of the 17th century. And that is the time when Philip von Limburg wrote his book History of the Inquisition, that I am reading on my second YouTube channel, Jörg War on Disinfo, and you can follow there. He also was one of the Huguenots, or the 400,000 inhabitants of France who fled after the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in the end of the 17th century, because the end of the 17th century, 1690 something, because then France lost a lot of their best workers, you know, carpenters and guys who worked in the metal business. What is that? A Schmidt, we call that here. What is that called?
Oh yeah, ironsmith, or
yeah, ironsmith. Thank you. Yeah,
I
Smith.
think that's it.
And all
I
these,
might have that wrong, but
a lot of these professions were done by Protestants, and they were all fleeing France because of the revocation of the Edict of Nantes, because that also meant that the persecution was open again, and the Inquisition was going on again, and they fled France, and they fled into the Netherlands, where Philip von Limburg was there, write this book on the history of the Inquisition, and of course from the Netherlands they fled to the New World, the United States of America as we know it today. Yeah? So after Henry IV's death, the revocation of the Edict of Nantes drove 500,000 Protestants into exile. A lot were killed in France, and a lot were driven into exile. Yeah? We must not forget also Jacques Clément, who on August 1st, 1589, stabbed King Henry III the Great on the streets of Paris in broad daylight. Both these assassins, meaning Ravaillac and Clément, were recommended by the Jesuit and the clergy for meritorious service, and were even applauded from their pulpits. The images and pictures of the regicides were exhibited in the church chapels, placed on altars, and the assassins treated as though they were canonized saints. Clément was called an angel by the Jesuit priest Camelet, and Jesuit professor Guigard taught his students that Clément did nothing wrong. Jacques Clément, wrote Guigard, has done a meritorious act inspired by the Holy Spirit. Unquote. We are not talking of the Holy Spirit of the Bible, dear listener. And the Jesuit Mariana, whose writings had inspired Ravaillac, cites Clément's crime as an example of the true type of tyrannicide. Then there was the Jesuit-controlled Balthasar, aka Balthasar, who was encouraged by the Jesuits at their college in Trèves, that's in Germany, in south of Germany, Trèves, a city even older than Rome, to assassinate William I, Prince of Orange, for which act of regicide Catholic King Philip II of Spain rewarded Balthasar's parents with 3 country estates, Lièvremont, Austall, and Dampmartin. Quotations such as these could be multiplied by the 1,000. The Jesuits have executed deeds of regicide many times over, assassination being, next to poisoning, the most favored method of choice. History reveals that in almost every instance, the real cause of seditions, tumults, revolutions, and disorder in France, in Spain, and Portugal was to be found with the Jesuits. Read for yourself the grim assessment of one of their former pupils, the Abbé Marcet de la Roche-Arnaud, who spent 8 years in a Jesuit college. Quote, "How can any honest man live among them? Do you wish to excite trouble? Do you wish to provoke revolution, to produce the total ruin of your country? Call in the Jesuits." Unquote. Unquote. I couldn't have put it in any better words that Abbé Marcet de Roche-Arnaud put it here. How can any honest man live amongst the Jesuits? Do you wish to excite trouble, to provoke revolution, to produce the total ruin of your country? Call in the Jesuits. Their grand maxim, says James Aitken Wylie, wherever they are, is agitate. Agitate! And yet, if despotisms will not serve them, their maxim is to demoralize society and render government impossible, and from the resulting chaos to remodel the world anew. Unquote. This is from James Aitken Wylie, History of Protestantism.
Man,
thus we
that's
see...
heavy.
Yeah, this is a book we really have to go into sometime, eh?
Oh, you know, Jörg, I just wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, please do.
Just apply this. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you wanted to make a longer comment. No.
I'm sorry. I'm getting a connection problem again. And well, a little bit. It was, I couldn't hear that last sentence that you had said there. So
okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make a comment there on this last couple sentences you just read.
Mm-hmm.
And do you wish to excite trouble, to provoke revolution, to produce the total ruin of your country? Call in the Jesuits. And that's what they did with Pope Francis to a joint session of Congress in 2015. And my, oh my, are we going to see what is become of America now, aren't we, Jörg?
Yes, you have a point there, but I think the even more important point is that nobody in the United States of America is aware that the Jesuits actually founded your country. So
please
they
keep
have
going.
Yeah, you know, we have talked about that, and there is this one recording that I will put out in the future on Inquisition Update on the connection between rulers of evil and the Ark and the Dove, where it is absolutely made clear that when the Jesuit father Andrew White, after whom is named the White House in Washington, how they founded the Maryland colony, which was the only Catholic colony in the 13 colonies over there in the United States when it still was the colonies, how they used how the Jesuits were the actual founders of the United States of America. And as you probably remember, Bret, when I was reading the book All Roads Lead to Rome, when I was reading the book The Secret History of the Jesuits, which I haven't published in English yet, we have an outro where Alberto Rivera says George Washington was the first Jesuit-controlled president of America.
That's right. That's right.
Alberto Rivera says that in that video.
Yep.
There is no question about it who founded the United States of America. And everybody who is in denial, I ask, please open your Bible. Go to Revelation 13. Don't believe me, don't believe Bret, don't think that we are ranting, and especially I am ranting against Americans. I'm a stupid European and I hate American people. Go to the Bible. It says in the Bible in Revelation 13.
Yes, it sure does, Jörg. And this is exactly the video I'm working on.
What is the verse here? And I saw another piece that is somewhere in here.
Oh yeah, that's 13 verse. Ooh,
I'm just looking at it. I just don't see it. Is it?
I will pull it up here too. I just was working on that the other day. I know it's in there in the teens, maybe. Wrong book. I'm in Matthew, not.
Verse 11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Here the Bible clearly says, it is Jesus Christ, people. Because the book of Revelation is the revelation of Jesus Christ given to John the Apostle. It is Jesus Christ who gives this revelation. It is actually Jesus Christ speaking. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. The United States of America is the opposite of Europe, which is multitudes of tongues and nations and languages. It is an uninhabited big piece of land. Therefore,
yes,
it is
it's the new world.
Yeah,
it's
therefore,
the new
it is
world.
the beast that comes out of the earth. It is written in the Bible that America is a beast, people, not a Protestant, God-loving, God-fearing country. Whether you like it or not, but that's the truth. I'm sorry to be the messenger of such bad news. And it has nothing to do with it that I'm a German here, because we are screwed even more than you. I mean, I have been living in the first beast all my life. So I'm not the one who is pointing fingers to people who live in the second beast. But the point is that you have to be aware of it. And it's not me saying it, it's not Bret saying it, it is not Inquisition Update saying it. It is the Bible. It is Jesus Christ himself who gives the revelation, who gives this vision to John. When John then sees, given by Jesus Christ, the vision, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. So here we know that the second beast is a mirror of the first beast, because the Jesuits were involved in founding that country from the beginning. From the beginning. And of course they do not tell you that. But when you understand the Bible, and when you understand real history, and with this P.D. Stuart helps us here, and James Aitken Wylie helps us here, and Henry Grattan Guinness helps us here, when we have the real understanding, we see through the veil they put above our heads. All of a sudden you get X-rays. X-ray view. X-ray eyes, you know?
That's right.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to start a rant about this here, but I think this is of absolute importance. Wylie says their grand maxim is agitate. If despotisms will not serve them, their maxim to demoralize society and render government impossible, and from the resulting chaos to remodel the world anew. A new world order. Thus we see that, like their more openly violent offshoot in Northern Ireland, Sinn Féin, the Jesuits are, quote, prepared to talk peace, unquote, when it serves them, but are, quote unquote, ready for war when it does not. There's a footnote here where the author says Gary Adams, the Sinn Féin president, attended St. Finian's primary school run by the De La Salle Christian Brothers, a Jesuit brotherhood. So there's an absolutely undeniable connection between Sinn Féin and the Jesuit brotherhood. And whenever you have the opportunity to read the oath of the people of the Sinn Féin, you will notice very remarkably resemblance with the oath of the Jesuits, I can tell you, because I read it in another book, in another video. One of its superior general, the footnote continues here, Jesuit Father Alvaro Rodriguez Quevaria, took the professed, meaning took the professed perpetual vows. So that is the fourth vow of the Jesuit that you know as the vow of induction, the oath of induction. Yeah, the professed vows are the final vows. Well, the author explains that himself here better than I can do. For the fully professed, wherein the Jesuit professes where the Jesuit professes a perpetual vow of special obedience to the Pope. Thus, behind the scenes, the leadership of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, is under the blightful influence of the Jesuit order, and Jerry Adams, their arch-agent, has been thoroughly poisoned by their maxims. Okay, so much about Sinn Féin and about Ireland here. Reader, the Jesuits are men of the most subtle and diabolical industry. initiated into all the mysteries of hell, and within their camp are vipers, scorpions, and every other venomous thing. But since this opinion may be seen by some as eccentric, I shall confirm it by sufficient authority of diverse authors, so that I may the better clear it from the prejudice of the upstart or the incredulous of mind. I assure you, I do not overstate the matter. Read for yourself this desperate appeal from Privy Councillors Lord Suffolk, Salisbury, and Morton to Lord Falkland, the Lord Deputy of Ireland, in a letter dated March 2nd, 1627. Quote, "The Jesuits be not only a subtle society, but also an audacious sort of people, fearing no punishment, no, not the halter, means the gallows itself. So that we are at a nonplus, or meaning perplexed, how to banish or to devise a means to chase away these wasps from His Majesty's dominion." Unquote. Nicolini seconds this testimony, and into Nicolini we will go within a few minutes when we are finishing the part of this book, Codeword Barbelon. Nicolini, you know from the book History of the Jesuits, Their Origin, Progress, Doctrines, and Designs. He seconds this testimony by saying, quote, "No danger, not even that danger of death, can deter a Jesuit from following his projects when once they are considered profitable to the order, or necessary to avenge it of its enemies. The moment they could return from exile, the instant they were set free, they returned to their plots and intrigues with unabated ardor and a most wonderful obstinacy." Unquote. The dog returns to his vomit. Dear reader, there is more than mere rhetoric in those two sentences than in a whole library of sermons. And indeed, if those sentences were understood by the reader with the same emphasis as they are delivered by the author, Nicolini, we needed not any more instructions in this volume on the character and machinations of the Jesuits. And hereby P.D. Stuart ends Chapter 4, the trial and confessions and trial of Henry Garnet, the instigator, the superior general, the superior Jesuit, not the superior general, but the superior Jesuit of England, of the United Kingdom at the time of the Gunpowder Plot, that was there to blow up King James and the whole Protestant government in order to get a Spanish invasion that did not succeed 1588, to get now the Spanish soldiers on the ground in England, and to install again a government that is under the yoke of Rome. That was the goal of the Gunpowder Plot, and I advise everyone to do their own research into this and other methods of workings of the Jesuits. Now, Bret, you still there?
Oh yeah,
so our connection still stands.
Yep. It does. Okay. Yeah. Yep, sure does. Those Jesuits and their whole multitude of corpses, I want to say. They train each other to be a corpse, dead to any natural affection, in order to carry out their diabolical scheme.
Right. So, Bret, I want to finish our broadcast today, not with the Codeword Barbelon, because next time we will start on page 59, chapter 5 of Codeword Barbelon, which is called The Art of Evil, the Moral Theology of the Jesuits. And dear listener and viewer of the video, I can advise you to not miss that. But before we go into that, because Nicolini was cited twice in the reading today, I want to go to the introduction of the book that Nicolini wrote, and he wrote this book, if I'm not mistaken, in it stood here somewhere, I think it was in 1852 or something. Nicolini, History of the Jesuits, Their Origin, Progress, Doctrines and Designs, and I'm going to read to you the introduction. Another opportunity of the broadcast of or the recording that we are doing here, the reading of P.D. Stuart's Codeword Barbelon. I already read from the preface, but now I want, with your permission, Bret, read the introduction of this. Is that okay for you?
I'm all ears.
This is the introduction by Nicolini himself on his book History of the Jesuits, Their Origin, Progress, Doctrines and Design. And because we are already, I think, some 50 minutes in the video, I will not give any comments. I will just read it to you, and we will give the link where you can get the book on the internet free as a PDF in the description box of this video, and then you can read it for yourself. Not only the preface and the introduction, but the whole book that contains of about some 620 pages. When I first intimated to some of my friends my intention of writing the history of the Jesuits, most of them dissuaded me from the enterprise as from a task too difficult. I am fully aware of all the difficulties I have to encounter in my undertaking. I am sensible that to write a complete and detailed history of the Jesuits would require more time and learning than I have to bestow. Neither could such a history be brought within the compass of 600 or 700 pages. It will be my endeavor, however, to give as faithful an account of the society as I can, to furnish an accurate narrative of facts and an outline of the principal members of the order. Thus much, at least, with the aid of time, patience and study, may be achieved by anyone. I, Nicolini, confess too that I am encouraged by a sense of an intrinsic interest of the subject itself, which may well do much to cast a veil over my own imperfect treatment of it. For, amidst the general wreck and decay of all human things, amidst the rise and fall of dynasties, nay, of empires themselves, and whole nations of men, the inquiry may indeed give us pause wherein lay the seeds of that vitality in the original constitution of the Jesuits, which has served during 3 centuries to maintain the ranks of the society under many shocks still unbroken. A sufficient answer to this inquiry will, I trust, be developed during the course of my narrative. The main difficulty of my subject, as will be readily understood, lies in discovering and delineating the true character of the Jesuits. For, take the Jesuit for what he ought or appears to be, and you commit the greatest of blunders. Draw the character after what the Jesuit seems to be in London, and you will not recognize your portrait in the Jesuit of Rome. The Jesuit is the man of circumstances, despotic in Spain, constitutional in England, republican in Paraguay, bigot in Rome, idolater in India. He shall assume and act out in his own person with admirable flexibility all those different features by which men are usually to be distinguished from each other. He will accompany the gay woman of the world to the theatre, and will share in the excess of the debauchee. With solemn countenance he will take his place by the side of the religious man at the church, and he will revel in the tavern with the glutton and the sot. He dresses in all garbs, speaks all languages, knows all customs, is present everywhere, though nowhere recognized. And all this, it should seem, O monstrous blasphemy, for the greater glory of God, ad majorem Dei gloriam, as their motto reads. According to my opinion, in order to form a correct estimate of the Jesuits, we must, first, study their code, and, disregarding its letter, endeavor to discover the spirit in and by which it was dictated. Secondly, We must be ever on our guard against the deception of judging them simply by their deeds, without constant reference to the results flowing from them, for we may rest assured that, in their case, it will be too often found that the fruit which externally may be fair and tempting to the eye yields nothing at its core but vileness and corruption. I'm sorry, I can't help but making a comment here, for we may rest assured, Nicolini says, that in their case, in the case of the Jesuits, it will be too often found that the fruit, which externally may be fair and tempting to the eye, yields nothing at its core but vileness and corruption. Why did I have to read that again? When we go to the book of Genesis in the Bible, we read, in Genesis chapter 3, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. We just read that the fruit which externally may be fair and tempting to the eye yields nothing at its core but vileness and corruption. It has been this way since the foundation of the earth, since the Garden of Eden, and Eve was the first to trap into it. Do you want to trap into it also? You have been warned not only by God, but by every Christian on the earth. It is under the guidance of such principles of criticism as these that I shall write, Nicolini, my history. My readers, however, must not look to find my book thick sown throughout with nothing but vehement and indiscriminate abuse against the order. Such is not the vehicle through which, in the judgment of the impartial, I shall be expected to manifest my disapproval, whenever the occasion for such disapproval shall present itself. It will be my endeavor not to let astray by any feeling whatsoever, but to give every one his due. Whatever I shall advance against the Jesuits, I shall prove upon their own authority or by notorious, incontestable facts. Alas! These will prove to be too numerous and of too dark a character to require the addition of anything that is untrue, and the society numbers among its members too many rogues to prevent its historian, if indeed one so unjust could be found, for making creditable mention, for poor humanity's sake, of the few honest, if misguided, ones he may chance to meet on his way. I hope my readers will be indulgent to me, if I promise that I will spare neither trouble nor exertion to surmount all the difficulties that lie in my path, and to present in a true light as possible the crafty disciples of the Brotherhood of Loyola. So far, the little introduction of G.B. Nicolini to his book, The History of the Jesuits, The Origin, Progress, Doctrines, and Design. And that finishes our recording for today. Started off with the reading of Codeword Barbelon. I will leave it up to Bret to do some closing remarks on our broadcast today, and I thank you, my dear listener and viewer of the video, and thank you very much, And sorry if you experienced any, or did you noticed any of the technical trouble we had, because we had to switch computers and start the call over again. And I hope it will come out fine when the video is produced. And we will not give in to the wiles of the devil. He can torpedo our broadcast as much as he wants. We have backup recordings running all the time, and we will finally succeed in bringing the truth and in bringing the book Codeword Barbelon and everything associated with it out, so that you can study it, and by that starting to engage in your own studies, because doing your own research is the only research that is of any value to you. And I understand that, because I was and still am of the same mind. Only the truth that I found out for myself is the truth that really satisfies me. So, thank you very much for watching and listening and commenting in the comment section of the video. And until next time, Jörg from Joggler66, Hour of the Truth says, God bless you and bye-bye.
Thank you, Jörg. That was a wonderful reading you did of that book by G.B. Nicolini, The History of the Jesuits. And certainly, you know, the Jesuits are probably one of the most difficult subjects for a Christian to come to terms with, but indeed we must do it. And it's always wonderful to find people that are willing to share with you their insights and their reading. And I must thank Jörg for his time and energy that he has put into doing this reading along with me. And it's going to be a very, very deep study that we are going to continue doing. And I'm looking forward to the next recording. And I just hope and pray that everyone has an opportunity to separate themselves from the wiles of the devil and come closer to the Lord and study His Word and separate yourself from the temptations of the devil. And with that, we're closing the session for today. And I thank you for listening, and God bless you. Bye-bye for now.